Shashi Tharoor from India. Again, an honor to ask you this, but you've become, over the years, more and more positive about India. And I've noted many of your comments about India's developments in recent years. Just curious, in light of recent events in India, do you still maintain a positive outlook on India's future? And how do you see India in relation to other Asian powers, particularly China and, of course, this part of Asia, Southeast Asia?
Well, India has maintained high growth rates of 8 to 9% for several years now. And with the young population, is likely to continue. And it's largely domestically driven. So I see that as going on. And that will keep the country relatively peaceful. But whether it will be a challenge to China is a different question. In fact, if you read the Chinese commentaries, they don't consider India as a rival. And if you watch the growth rates of the two, you're starting from a base of 1/3 that of China, and growing at the rate of 2/3 of China, so you never catch up.
Could I just follow up on that? Do you think that the situation in Tibet is likely to create difficulties between China and India?
Well, you know what happened in 1962.
Yeah.
The Chinese armed forces have not grown weaker.
Mm. A sobering thought. The gentleman in the middle over there, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Professor Ken Morgan from the University of Western Australia. Senior Minister, retired Prime Minister. When you were Prime Minister, Australia hasn't moved anywhere. It's still in the same place. But Australia didn't play a great role in the Singapore of your time. Now that Australia is part of the East Asia Summit, and an initiative coming out of Singapore with Goh Chok Tong was the expansion of ASEAN from ASEAN plus 8. If you were Prime Minister, how would you see ASEAN plus 8 with Russia, with America, with Australia, with New Zealand, with India integrated in ASEAN? And as someone who'd been at the very beginning of APEC, how do you see the role difference between ASEAN and APEC in the world if you were the Prime Minister now, sir?
There are many questions you put rolled up into one. I'll just deal with your main question. ASEAN plus 8. The 8 includes Russia. Now, if you have a major power with different long-term considerations and objectives, I don't see how the cohesion can be maintained. Russia has a view of the Pacific which is different from that of America or Japan or North Korea or South Korea or ASEAN. So I see it as a discussion group. Had it been the 7, then there would have been a cohesion around certain principles of maintaining a separate sphere of influence. As for Australia's role, it was inevitable that that phase where Southeast Asia consisted of small and vulnerable economies and with weak armed forces, that phase had to go. And your capacity of intervention in any major conflict, even within the region, is now more limited. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, even up to the beginning of the 70s, your projection of forces could have deterred any conflict in or help together with the British and the New Zealanders could have prevented the conflict. Now the British have withdrawn. The New Zealanders don't want to have an air force. And I don't see the Australians alone being able to influence the outcome of conflict in the region.
Thank you. Former Minister and Mentor, I'm Nabil Fahmy from Egypt. I have two very short questions. In our discussions today, we discussed at some length the issue of a bipolar world versus a multipolar world. I'm curious to your opinion.
A what world?
A multipolar world or a bipolar world. In your opinion, is a multipolar world more secure or a bipolar world? The second question, what do you see as the most acute problem facing the world in the next 10 years?
Those are small questions, you said?
Short. I said short.
Short. Okay.
Whether it's more dangerous to have a bipolar or multipolar world depends upon the third pole. Bipolar world is more secure. Both sides have weapons of mass destruction that prevents a conflict. If you have a third pole that also has weapons of mass destruction, but with different objectives, then you'll cause problems because you've got to side with one side or the other, or you may create a completely different side, and that will create tensions between the three. So I would imagine that the bipolar world is more secure. What was your second question?
What is the most acute problem you see facing the world in the next 10 years?
I have no crystal ball.
It sounds like you see a number of problems. That it's a wealth of problems rather than a dearth of problems. Yes, sir.
Mr. Minister, Mentor Minister, my name is Pranay Gupte. I'm originally from India. I've interviewed you in the past. May I ask you one question about Singapore's message? In the past, the perception always was that Singapore's model was that of disciplined capitalism, and it certainly worked for Singapore. After the last election, where so many forces were at work, what is the new message that Singapore has in terms of the continuum, in terms of its record, the present, and what you anticipate to be the future of your diverse multicultural society? Thank you, sir.
Well, what happened in the last elections was bound to happen anyway. Our total dominance was not sustainable. A younger generation wants to see competition, and they voted in an opposition party. Whether it will stop just with competition or will go on to a desire to have a two-party system is another matter. It depends upon the performance of the opposition and the response of the government. And the mindset of succeeding younger generations that comes with every general election every 5 years.
Could I ask a question, perhaps, about America?
He wants to ask.
Oh, have I missed one here? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mentor Minister, this is Francisco Tata, former Minister and Senator from the Philippines. It's a great pleasure to see you again, sir. The question has to do with the global war on terror. After the 10th anniversary of G11, I listened to the lectures of Baroness Eliza Manningham Buller, the former Director General of MI5. In the 3 lectures, he made at least 3 points. First point, that there's no justification for going into Iraq. Second point was there is no justification for the use of torture in fighting terrorism. And the third point, on security and freedom, she says that
one is not opposed to the other. One must always go with the other. The question is, how would this point of view, coming from its source, impact the global war on terror?
I wouldn't like to have a clash of ideas with the head of MI5 or MI6. She stated a view. I think she's supposed to be an expert in the field. I'm not an expert in the field, but I have my own views.